You're listening to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor, powered by bbbgive.org. Here we explore the motivations that form the basis of giving and service. We inspire generosity and celebrate the transformative effects that giving and service have on the human spirit and on community. The conversations featured on the podcast also uncover giving strategies that educate and provide tools to help listeners make impactful gifts of both their time and money. We hope you enjoy this episode.
This is the Heart of Giving podcast, powered by bbbgive.org. Give.org is the nation's standards-based charity evaluator, and it's your one-stop source for information on giving and reports on the most asked about charities. I'm Art Taylor, and today we're going to roll back into some conversations about the arts and its ability to transform not only young people, but older people too. But we're going to focus today on the effect it can have on the development of young people. And with me today to talk about this is Aidan Davis, who is the co-director of Statement Arts, a small nonprofit in New York City that is doing amazing work for its size, definitely punching above its weight in delivering high-level results for young people. Aidan, welcome to the Heart of Giving podcast.
Thank you so much, Art. It's a pleasure.
So, Aidan, you know, this show always begins with a journey down the guest's past and how they got to where they are. And we do this so that others might see themselves in your story. So tell me, how did you personally get connected? Was this as a young person yourself that you came across the arts, or was it something that happened later in your life?
Sure. I've always been connected to the arts my entire life. Music, singing, performing, playing the piano, any instrument I could get my hands on. That's always been a happy place for me in my life. I grew up inundated with music. All of my grandparents sang, my parents sang. And I grew up actually quite religious in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, in a very rural area. We had some decent access to music education, but really nothing like kids have today, and certainly not the abundance of opportunities that there are here in NYC for arts education opportunities. But regardless, growing up in the church, music is such a big component of church life. And so I grew up taking piano lessons. That was the one instrument that I played very regularly and obviously still continue to play today, and developed a passion for musical theater pretty early on. And being in a church, there's plenty of performance opportunities. So that was sort of my entry point into performing, singing, and exercising musical gifts in public.
Nice. So it wasn't a surprise then that when you got an opportunity to help others do this, you did. But what did it mean to you personally to have this arts background? How did it help you as a professional, or how did it help you get through life? What was it about the art that made such a difference for you personally?
For me personally, involvement in the arts and dedication to the arts helped me grow in so many ways. I guess I'll just start with the idea of grit and sticking to it. The art of practicing, and I use that word specifically because it really is, it's an art, it's a habit, it's a ritual. Learning to stick with something, even though you may not be very advanced at first, just the habit of doing it repeatedly and sticking with it and not giving up, that's so integral to success. And I hate to see programs cut in public schools. We'll get back to that, but there are just so many valuable skills that I was able to gain through that. So that's the first one. The other huge benefit for me is community. I remember the first time I participated in my music. Basically, in the middle of nowhere, PA, there are districts, then there are regions, and then states for chorus events and music events. And the first district chorus event that I was selected for, I met so many new friends and got to build so many new connections. This was also an interesting intersection of my life because I was grappling with my own self. I had not yet come out as a young person, and it was really difficult to meet other people who were not a part of my very insular religious community, which gave me a lot of benefits, but also it was hard back in
I can
2000,
imagine it was. I'm,
2001.
I'm from I'm from Pennsylvania, and I know that
Ah,
there are communities that are less accepting of
that's right.
people who have alternative views of their sexuality.
Hmm.
So, I get that. And, we don't
Yeah.
need to gloss over that. That's an important life journey that you had to go through. And maybe the arts helped you. I think that's tremendous to know.
That's exactly right. Just with first of all community and meeting people who accept you as you are, who welcome you and celebrate you as the unique person who you are, and don't make you feel like you need to change anything about yourself. Saying it like that, that's a tremendous component of what we offer at Statement Arts, and welcoming the individual exactly as you are. And celebrating the individual exactly as they are. So community is a tremendous portion of I think what I was able to gain through the performing arts, and also to learn about other people, how they live, and to get a chance to exit my very insular community for a moment to understand other perspectives and help give me a more well-rounded understanding of the world around me.
Yeah. Well, so you now have this really important role at Statement Arts. And I just want to start with this idea because, a lot of times people don't really understand what it takes to operate a nonprofit. But yours is really small. It's one of the smaller organizations that we actually evaluate at the
Mhm.
Wise Giving Alliance. We're talking maybe what, 350, $400,000 in revenue every year.
That's about right.
Yeah. And so it's not a particularly large organization. You're going to depend on the generosity of people closest to you because obviously not a lot of people outside of your community even know you exist yet. And
Hmm.
so you have to make the most out of every single dollar. I would imagine that also means that you're using volunteers and
Hmm.
others who are willing to give up themselves to help you make this work. And I'm always blown away by people who persist in organizations like this. You've been there for what? How long have you been with the organization?
Well, that's an interesting question. 4
Okay.
years officially in this
Okay.
capacity as
Yep.
associate director, but I've been associated with this org as a teaching artist, which is how I was introduced to Statement
Teaching
Arts
artist. Right.
since 11 years now.
So that's was that a volunteer role or a part-time role, or how did
That
you
was a
function in that role?
it was not a volunteer role. It was paid, but it
Hmm.
was only seasonal for a very short period of
Seasonal.
time. That's
Right.
right, for about
Okay.
2-3 weeks at a time in the summers.
There you go. So, you this organization is capitalizing as best it can on the resources around it, finding
Mhm.
people like you to do a job, and you're achieving, pretty significant results. First of all, I want to talk about the services that you provide. Let's get into that. What are
Great.
some of the services that you offer at Statement Arts?
Sure. We offer a continuum of service, is how we like to describe
Continuum
it.
services. Okay.
That's right, a
Okay.
continuum of
I love it.
services. Yes, starting with we offer programming to learners as young as grade 3. And we continue, our hope is that they start with us then and they continue with us throughout their adolescence as they prepare to enter college. And then we keep in touch with them after they're in college and check in with them, see what they need. So our 4 programs that we offer is Start Young is our very first one. That's we have 2 sessions, grades 3 to 6, and another in grades 7 to 11 that operates during the summer. It's a musical theater summer camp, and that was my first entry point actually to Statement Arts as well. We offer a second program for rising high school seniors called Start Dreaming, and this is a continuation of some of the elements that they learn in Start Young, but much more advanced. They take private voice lessons every week, sing in a choir, creative writing exercises. This all crescendos to them getting into college. As I mentioned, it's a year-long program. And so after they finish the summer arts intensive in July, each of those kids is paired with a volunteer mentor, as you mentioned earlier, who we've worked with, vetted, and trained to make sure that they're able to assist that student and their family in anything that they may need college application related. So they'll help work with them to understand what the FAFSA is and what it means and how they can qualify, and help them keep track of the many different details that the kids need in order to get into their college of choice. And we're really proud to boast about a 100% acceptance rate of our students from the Start Dreaming program into their colleges of choice, and most of them get substantial scholarships. So really super excited about that program. As we continue moving forward in their progression, we have our Start Works program. So this is for kids who are either in college or have recently graduated college, who are looking for some real world experience. It's a vicious cycle because you need experience, and it's really hard to get as a young person who's still either in school or trying to break their way into the professional world. So we offer a couple entry points in our Start Works program. Oftentimes the alums return to us to assist us in either the Start Young program or the Start Dreaming program. Oftentimes they've been a part of both of those programs, so they're acquainted with them intimately, and it's a happy place for them to return to. They can learn all kinds of skills of how to either run an arts camp or how to keep track of, they learn everything about Google Suite, how to communicate with families and participants, etc. And we offer another program where we connect alums to, we have several partnerships with arts education or arts advertising businesses who are seeking paid interns. And so we prep our kids for these opportunities by reviewing the resumes with them, giving them mock interviews, making sure that we review their writing materials, and then we send them to the advertising agencies or arts education agencies so they can start their professional careers and get some experience. That's the third in our continuum of service. And then another program that sort of overlaps each of those different age groups is our Start Access program. And we began that, I remember clearly when we began that one, that was in 2018. And the reason that we started it was because for the first time ever, we had more kids apply for our Start Dreaming program than we could accept. We keep that cohort very small intentionally so that they can get the highly detailed level of services, but we wanted to give the kids who we couldn't feel like we could take in that program that year opportunity to get involved with us as an org and stay connected with us. So through a Start Access program, this is for all age groups, and we offer tickets to Broadway shows, master classes. We've done several acting classes, singing classes. We have talkbacks. We've had Lin-Manuel Miranda come and speak with our kids. We've had Laura Gomez from Orange is the New Black, all kinds of professional artists, and some of our alums come in to speak with our kids too and inspire them in other ways aside from the main programming. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a lot. It's a lot,
yes.
So what have been some of the success stories that you might want to recount? Are there particular stories of young people who've gone through the program, who've gone on to either contribute back to what you're doing or do especially good things with their lives afterward?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say that some of the seeds that you plant, you're not even sure when they're going to sprout.
Right.
Everyone's on their own timeline, but we've had some really incredible success stories. A few of our kids have gone on to appear in national tours of Broadway shows. We're really proud of a couple of our alums for doing that. One alum in particular was going through a really difficult time at home and in his upbringing. And we ended up, we're fortunately supported by some really dear friends of ours who work at Morgan Stanley. And this young man needed a lot of assistance, but kept returning. And so we stuck by him. And the long story short is we ended up connecting him with our friends at Morgan Stanley. And he's been working there for 3 years now. He's doing amazingly. And he comes back and supports us at all of our fundraising events. He's really proud to share his story about how we've had an impact on his life. That's a really transformative experience, specifically right there. And quite a few of the rest of our alums are working in careers in the performing arts. We've had another one of our kids who I remember working with this young lady when she was about 12 years old in the Start Young program. I was her teaching artist back then. And she's come up through the program, did the Start Young program, the Start Dreaming program, went on to graduate. She went to NYU for film studies and was just nominated for a New York Film Emmy, which is really exciting too. And some of our alums come back and work with the organization in different capacities, help us reach out to families, help us communicate. And that's just the beginning of our success stories. So yeah, a lot of really exciting work.
Aiden, what do you think your program means to the families of the kids who come to you? I assume many of them come to you from pretty modest backgrounds, and having a
Yes.
program like this helps what the family is able to do for their young person as well. I can think of my own situation. For me, it was the YMCA that really helped raise me. And I wonder how parents and other family members feel about what you're able to do for their young people.
Sure. I'd love to speak on that. We know because we ask them very regularly. We're really big into surveys and collecting information on how we can continue improving what we do. So we hear back from parents very regularly on the impact that that their kids' involvement with Statement Arts has been to them. And coincidentally, everything that we offer is free, and we do that. In order to participate in the programming, we ask that families demonstrate to us that they qualify for a free or reduced lunch or free or reduced Metro cards, and almost all of our kids are from Title I schools. So you're exactly right about the backgrounds and the impact that it can have. So we hear all kinds of things, but the most frequent comment that we hear is what a happy place this is for their kids. How they come home every day from the summer camps feeling excited about what they've learned, about the new friends that they've been able to make. This has been especially important in a post-COVID world when so many kids were isolated and locked away and really felt alone. So coming out of COVID times has been especially impactful, I think, for families. And a lot of parents, I think, much like mine, they supported my artistic endeavors. They were excited to invest in piano lessons for me, but they didn't know the first thing about where I would go for vocal lessons, what types of things were important to think about or consider. And most of these families are really busy working 2-3 jobs, some of them. So the bandwidth to really be able to identify extra opportunities for the kids is really low. So that's mostly what we receive is gratitude for making the connections and really threading the needle for their kids, making sure that they have the opportunities that they deserve.
Yeah. Do you see sometimes that you get one young person in, they maybe have brothers and sisters, do they also come along, or are
That's
there
very frequent.
multi young people in a particular family coming through?
Oh, absolutely. That's happened ever since the beginning. And this year we had one family who we worked with. They had 2 kids in the Start Young program, and then their oldest daughter was in the Start Dreaming program. So we had 3 siblings in programs all at the same time, and that's not the first time that's happened either.
Yeah. Now, you must have a pretty active volunteer management program. How do you recruit and get others involved, and what are some of the roles that volunteers play in your work?
Great question. Volunteers primarily are involved in the Start Dreaming program as mentors for the kids from the Start Dreaming program to help get them into college. The process for recruiting those mentors has varied, frankly, throughout the years. In times gone by, it was primarily our founder who would rely on her network and reach out to friends, family. The Start Dreaming program, the mentoring component, initially when it was born, we partnered heavily with the Morgan Stanley Foundation. So a lot of our mentors came from either the Morgan Stanley Foundation or from the company at large. And at this point, it's sort of changed how we reach out to people and connect with them. We basically depend on our own social networks, reach out to people that way. We've also partnered with some educators at City College, and we've made some connections with a really spectacular theater educator there who teaches in the master's program. And the kids in that program need, or young adults in that program need service hours or a certain number of volunteer hours. So that's been a really great alliance for the both of us, actually, because it helps us both, helps them get their hours and helps us get the volunteers and the services that we need. So yeah, that's the primary way that we involve and engage with volunteers. Although we have plenty of other opportunities for that. So occasionally, we ask people to volunteer their time to come in and speak with our kids, especially people who have active careers in the performing arts. And particularly emphasizing anyone who's come from a background like our kids, or it sounds like you or like me, whose families had limited means, were supportive, but didn't really know where to turn as far as professional opportunities.
Yeah, that's true. You mentioned Morgan Stanley now a couple of times. I wanted
Hmm.
to maybe delve into that a little bit because companies can play a huge role in getting their employees engaged in nonprofits, either as donors or as mentors or as volunteers. Many times they can give them technical expertise. I'm just wanting now to follow that path a little bit closer with Morgan Stanley. Give me a little bit more context on the Morgan Stanley relationship.
Yes, that my founder of the org would be able to speak the most clearly on it because she was the one who made the connection. But
Who is she,
I
by the way? Who is she?
her name is Lisa Politi.
Lisa. Okay.
Yes, and yeah, it was she who founded this org and has really been the lifeblood of it for its entire duration. From what I understand, this began as a picnic lunch in Central Park, and there was a couple nearby them who had overheard that they were talking about this brand new arts education nonprofit, and they were intrigued. They wanted to hear more. And it's an incredible couple who have been on our board for a number of years. And the gentleman in the couple, it has with let's see, I'm trying to remember his exact title with Morgan Stanley, but
He was an executive with Morgan Stanley.
he is way up there in wealth
Mhm.
management, and
Okay.
yeah, manages tons and tons of clients, and has been so incredibly generous with us and his time and his resources. And that was initially the connecting point there. They've been on our board for a number of years and help us in so many different ways.
Okay.
We actually just completed our annual golf outing, which is our huge annual fundraiser. It's the biggest event of the year for us. And he helps us coordinate that every single year. Really
Oh,
donates a ton of time. Oh, truly. I don't know how we could do what we do without him. So big shout out to Keith and
well,
his
yeah.
amazing wife, Alexis.
And see, I have to hold that up because people don't realize what companies are capable of when it comes
Hmm.
to philanthropy. We always want to segment everything. You're either a nonprofit or you're for profit, but we're all in our own way philanthropic. We're all generous in our own way. Some of us have more to give than others. Some of us can give time, some of us can give cash, some of us can give clothes or things. Others of us have a huge network like your friend at Morgan Stanley that can put things into play for your organization to succeed. And when they're in that role and they take that on, because not all of them do, but when someone does that, you want to hold that up and give them some shine because we need that in our society. We need companies to engage in nonprofits. And it's so impressive to me again that they could have gone to MoMA or they could have gone to, any of the really large arts institutions, the Met, and I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of them do, right? But they decided, no, we want to work with a small local nonprofit in New York City that's doing things for kids who would never know about these other institutions but for what they get through your organization. I'm really impressed with that. And I just want to make sure that people listening to the show, if you happen to be in that role, just look at what you can do. Look at what you could do if you're in one of those roles, if you're in one of those positions, or if you know somebody and they're going to work every day in this really important and powerful job. Yeah, you can find some time to do something really great in your community. Find something that you're passionate about. This gentleman, Keith, you mentioned him. Is that his name?
That's
Keith
right.
found something really powerful to do for him. And it's really making a big difference now for kids generation after generation. So I'm really impressed, and I hope that others listening will begin to follow Keith's example too. Keith, congratulations and thanks to you. All right, so let me ask you this question about how you make this organization grow. And maybe you don't, but it seems to me that you're having the kind of success that could be potentially expanded, right? So, how might you go about expanding this if you wanted to? And secondly, is that something that you really want to do? You may be comfortable at the scale that you're operating now, feeling that if you do more, it might sort of tank the the great work that you're doing with at the scale that you have, and so it's not an easy decision to make. But if you were going to grow, how would you go about that, and what would you need?
Sure. I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this. And in fact, when I came in to officially interview for this position, this is something that I spent some time talking about is what I see the future of this organization branching out into. Uh, our Start Young, when we think about our continuum of service, that's what I like to come back to and how we can expand that just as it is. Right now, our Start Young, well, I'm going to back up a little bit further and just mention the fact that there are over 300 schools in New York City right now who lack any arts education at all,
Wow.
which is really mind-boggling in
Say
a
no
city
art
like
at all. Nothing. Nothing.
nothing, nothing.
Wow. See,
Yes.
that context doesn't make sense to me because now I'm an old
Yeah.
guy, right? But I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and there was music and arts all around us in school. I did
Mhm.
so much. I played like 4 different instruments, all free. They came into the school. It was crazy, right?
Yep.
So now you're telling me that most schools in New York City, 300 at least, have nothing,
Have
zero.
nothing, zero. That's because they lack any certified arts teachers who are there. Maybe they engage in some sort of an after school program, but according to the NYC data, that's what we see. The older the older the schools, so elementary schools, there's a certain amount. Middle schools, there's another certain amount. The more old schools get, so the high schoolers generally are the ones who are shorted the most. I should have had those exact stats ready
That's
for you,
okay.
but
We
it's
get we
it's
get the picture. We
staggering.
get the picture.
So, as a result, the need for arts education is drastic because we see what it does for kids. So,
Yeah.
the first thing, yes, I would love to expand, and I'd really like to start with our Start Young program. That is our program, again, that's for grades 3 to 6 or 7 to 11. We have those two cohorts. And right now, that exists in a vacuum of summer. That's it. So, it does fill a really important need for families as well regarding childcare, and not just that, but it's also it serves arts education. These kids learn harmonies, they learn how to act, they write their own stories that connect the songs that they learn, and they end up producing their own mini musicals at the end of this. So they really learn to take feelings about issues that matter to them and act on them in a really healthy way. So that's the first program that I would like to expand. And my dream for Start Young is that it becomes not just a summer program, we extend it throughout the summer program. And then the next phase is that we start to offer it as an after school program daily until parents are ready to pick up their children. That's my dream for it, is it becomes a daily thing. Um, we're not sure what that means, if we would be going into schools to supply this opportunity or if we would have a physical location. Right? We've been without a fixed physical location for the entire duration that we've been around. The Start Young program has been held at the United Palace Theater, who have been tremendous partners to us, and we have to shout them out.
Yeah.
And now the studios at the Northern Manhattan Artist Alliance. We have run that program ever since I started with the program in 2013. That's where it's been held, in that neighborhood, which has traditionally been a neighborhood which has lacked a lot of arts education opportunities. That's one of the dry spots in the city. Yeah, so that's the first program that I would like to expand. But the Start Dreaming program, we have ambitions for that to move once. We've always held that program somewhere in Midtown, just due to the ease of location and it's inspiring to be around all of these Broadway shows right next door. I think our dream for Start Dreaming would be to expand borough to borough. So have a Brooklyn version of it, a Queens version of it, Staten Island, Bronx, and offer that, and then start to pilot it in other cities. Because I think the success that we have with that program it's tremendous. It happens pretty much the same way every year. Each cohort is different, of course, as unique as the kids who are in it. But the gains that the kids make personally and professionally are pretty unified. So that's how I'd love to expand that one. And then the next portion of your question on what we need to do it, that it's resources. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to we are very particular about who we want to work with and who we choose to partner with. We want to make sure that the kids are having the strongest opportunities to learn from some of the best teaching artists that New York City has to offer. And so these are people who are working professionally, which oftentimes makes it difficult to work around their professional schedules, but we find ways to make that work. Or they're certified arts teachers who are already doing this every single day at a high level in New York City public schools. So that's the first place that we would need to continue investing in and beefing up our resources to make sure that we can hire the staff who we need to be able to run these programs. And it really does come down to resources. I'll mention that we are so small that none of us is full-time with this org. We're all artists who continue to work in the field in ways that enable us to continue to give like this. We're all part-time. So step one really would be hiring full-time staff to be able to manage the demand. But the demand is there. So
yeah. Well, awesome. Well, Aidan, I first of all just want to congratulate you for how you've progressed with this organization and stuck with it. And secondly, to encourage you to continue the great work that you're doing with Statement Arts. I just can't imagine kids not having alternatives, which would include the arts, for their daily activities. It's just strange to me. And the arts does so much for us to help us interpret and understand the world that it's really hard to envision what kids are actually missing. I think they're missing so much by not being able to have an arts program, music, performing arts, or visual for that matter.
Right.
So we need to encourage programs like yours. And again, I'm really impressed that you're able to do so much with so little. So I hope that people will get behind this and allow you to realize, your expansion opportunities and your expansion aspirations. So thank you for joining the show and giving us the opportunity to learn more about you.
It's been a true pleasure, Art. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate the platform and your kind words.
Well, listen, to all of you who have not heard about this, the Heart of Giving podcast is a weekly show. We have a new episode released every Tuesday. So I hope you will subscribe so that you can hear more stories like Aidan's and others about people who are doing amazing work, changing our society in a good way. So if you want to support the podcast, you can do that also by going to give.org. And you can make a donation there, and we'll put that to great use. Thank you for watching or listening, however you're getting this.
You've just listened to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor. Be sure to tune in next time for a brand new episode. To listen to our other interviews, visit heartgiving.podbean.com. That's heartgiving.podbean.com. Subscribe to our show on major podcast platforms. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Podbean's terms of service.